Rangers Journal.
Welcome everyone to the Rangers Journal Friday News Pod. It is Halloween today, the 31st of October. Joined so far just with Jack. Jack, mate, you all right?
Yeah, all right. Forgot to dress up for this one. Didn't think it over until you mentioned that there. But other than that, good. Happy at Rangers, which is a nice change.
It is a nice change. We are expecting Dino to join us as well, but so far it's just us two, mate. But we'll roll with the punches, no pun intended, as everybody's been saying all this week when we happen to mention the word roll. Come to you first. You broke this to me. There is breaking news this morning. It probably is important in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't like set my head on fire or anything like that, but it's a new academy director has been appointed. So can you give us any update on that?
Yeah, so there's not been anything official on the website yet, but most certain news places are running with it. It's John Hunter Barrett's leaving Wolves to come be our new academy director. Don't know too much about him. I know he worked with Kevin Felwell, Shock at Wolves. Says here he's been there for 14 years, and he should start in early 2026. Again, don't know much about him. Wolves are, I can't really think of many boys coming through at Wolves right enough. I don't think they're one of these English teams that are famed for their academies, but you don't work at that sort of level for that long if you don't have something about you. So it'll probably take a few years before we see any benefit from it, but we need to start getting more young players through.
Dino, welcome to the pod. Nice to see you, mate.
Welcome, guys. Nice to see you too. It's a bit different being on a Friday afternoon, but here we go.
So this is your first news pod, is that right?
Aye.
Well, if you're off or you're able to do them again in the future, mate, please just join us for it. So yeah, we're just discussing the new academy director supposedly going to be coming in from 2026. You know, the academy has not produced. We keep going back to the one or two, bits of light that we have, like Nathan Patterson. That's been it though, hasn't it?
Aye, there's not many that we can say that we've got fond memories of, which is quite sad, given the setup and the money spent to build what was Murray Park back 25-ish years ago. So it's really, really quite sad. We've had, obviously, a couple of generations of footballers come through, and you could count all of them in one hand. It's, went on to better things, so to speak. But one of the things that I think we really need to focus on as well is not just having like the Nathan Patterson, Barry Ferguson, Billy Gilmore sort of type players. We really need to be developing players to come through to be actual squad players. In terms of, like, I've been banging the drum for long enough about having players capable of filling the European quota to be good enough to be squad players. We've severely lacked in that in years gone by, and naming a third goalkeeper in the squad type thing to actually fill up one of the spots when Kieran Wright's been in the European squad for how many years now? Do you know what I mean? So that's one thing I want us to do. Is obviously we need to produce the best talent possible, and if we can get players even relatively close to the three players that I just mentioned, we'll be doing really well. But we really need to focus on developing players that are going to be good enough squad players instead of them leaving for nothing at the end of their contracts. And even if they're not good enough to remain first team squad players, actually sell them. So we're actually getting a return on our investment, because the amount of money that we're obviously paying to develop these players and then they're leaving for nothing at the end of their contracts is just money down the drain, isn't it?
Yep, no, you're right. Jack, you've covered some under 19s games, up at the training centre. Can you give us a wee bit of an insight? What's it like up there? What's the kind of match day behind the scenes type thing? Does it feel professional? Does it feel that it's worth the money?
Yes and no. They don't allow fans in, so you have there is a lot of people there, but it's all sort of friends, family, coaches, that sort of vibe. So there's not much of a professional atmosphere. It's a lot of, come on, son. It's not supporters on your back, which is something I think they're missing out on, just having that pressure of playing in front of fans. But I suppose that's what the loans are for. But the quality is really good. They're all good footballers. They very rarely lose the ball. They can all play out from the back. They're all quick. They're all relatively strong for their age. There is a few boys. I'm currently trying to get through an article for the site. I've been looking at some of the hottest prospects, but the one that stands out is Zebedee Lawson, who I'm sure the guys will remember we got from Brighton in the summer. Now he's quick, he's tricky, he's strong. For a 16-year-old, he's built like a 21-year-old. The only issue is he's quite selfish. There's a few times where he'll beat two players and there'll be a pass on, and he'll try and beat another two players and go for goal. But I think that's the sort of thing you get with a 16-year-old, and that'll come. There's another one, Kyle Glasgow's only 15. He looked really good in the couple of games I've seen him. Central defenders, Ollie Hind and James Reid, quite good. And Scally at left back also really impressed me. So there's a lot of good players there, but none that jump out as me as being right on that sort of first team level. I think that's mainly because they're all maybe sort of 15, 16, 17 at push now at that level, because most of our actual 18, 19, 20-year-olds are out on these cooperation loans.
And Dean makes a good point, and I'll just kind of say it and rephrase it as his point. No, really, we spend all this money on the setup, and you've seen it up close, and obviously you've mentioned how impressed you were with it. But we don't necessarily need every single player to be Billy Gilmore, or every single player to be Nathan Patterson, or even Barry Ferguson. But we would be doing well if we could get a player through, have him playing in our squad game, maybe not starting every game, but going to another SPFL team for $1 million or $2 million, something like that, or even going down south for a couple of million as well, making some money back. These players you've seen there, are they looking for you? You know, I know they're young, but are they looking like they've got the possibility of doing something like that?
Yeah, but in the case of a couple of the younger ones, you need to kind of see how they fill out. I seen them play Dumbarton down at Dumbarton in the Challenge Cup, and you can see the difference between the boys when they go up against a full men's team. A lot of them look still toty. They're 15 and they look it. So it's kind of, I don't want to be one of these guys where it's like, oh, he's not big enough, but you still need to wait and see how they develop physically before you can make a full judgment on it. The boy Lawson, if he doesn't make it into at least the first team squad, I will be surprised, because just the sheer skill and pace on the boy is very good. And Glasgow, like I said, if he grows, should do well. There's a boy Chris Condy up front now. I wouldn't say he's impressed me overly as a footballer, but he reminds me a bit of Chris Boyd. Like every time I see him, he get the ball in the box, the ball ends up in the back of the net, which is a great trait to have. So there's quite a few boys there that I think should be good enough to play in the Premiership or the Championship up here. It's just about whether we nurture them into those players, because we seem to have a pattern of, if somebody goes out on loan and doesn't light it up, that's them. We just keep sending them out random places and then release them. We should get them out. If the loan spell's not going well, bring them back, put them somewhere else, and try and get them somewhere they're going to flourish. And then, even if you're only getting $100,000 from Ross County for a young defender, it's $100,000 of free money, because you brought this boy through for nothing. And it's something we just don't take advantage of. And Celtic have done it in the past. They've sold guys to teams in the lower leagues in England. I mean, that Mikey Johnston never really made the grade there, and they got £3-4 million for him from West Brom. It's something you need to take advantage of, because it will help you reinvest that into players that are actually going to make the first team. But of course, ideally, you want these boys to be coming through and making the first team impact. But I think just with the age of them just now, we'll need to wait a few years to see that. But Zeb Jacobs, that was just mentioned in the chat, probably done a lot of the groundwork, and hopefully this new guy can kind of push that on to the next level.
Do you think there's anything the wider fan base can do to support the kind of youth or the younger players, or is it really just something that the club themselves take full control over, and there's not a lot we can do? My main issue is there's no pathway, in my opinion. When the good players do come through, they end up sitting on the bench and hardly getting a game time. We're seeing it just now with a couple of the players in the first team squad. We've even brought in Lyle Cameron, he can't seem to get a game as well. But there's Bailey Rice is there too, not getting game time. So I mean, I feel that we're kind of failing these players once they do break through to the first team.
Yeah, there's two sides to that for me. Basically, we've all alluded to recently, and it's been suggested on other podcasts and whatnot, that it's an incredibly hostile atmosphere for players to develop. irrespective of if you're a youth player or you've been signed from an English team, you know, when you're 20 years old. It doesn't really matter. It's still a very can be toxic and hostile atmosphere if things aren't going well to develop players. So you've got to look at it from that aspect as well. But also one thing that if you've got a son that's teenager and Rangers are knocking on the door, Motherwell are knocking on the door, and Dundee United are knocking on the door, you're going to be speaking to Motherwell and Dundee United before you're Rangers, because you know that your son's going to get developed, and that needs to change. And the only way that can change is that we have a better setup. But then on the side of that, we have players who are there just now with, you know, as you said, there's no bridge between the youth setup and the full team. And somebody just said there about the under-21s league. In an ideal world, we should be going back to that, but given the fact that our country's run by charlatans, I doubt that will come into fruition anytime soon. So what we need to do is, obviously, these loan deals that we've got in the 3 different leagues below us, and like Jack said, if it's not working at our club, then change, because they're not going to develop at our club as things currently stand. And as Jack said, that you're going to be waiting years on seeing anything actually getting any better. So in the meantime, all we can do is basically not cancel anybody out because they've had a bad performance. Just back them, and, you know, hope that when they do get these loan deals, that they do come back to being improved and can actually challenge for a team in the first team squad, because we don't want to be seeing talents like Bailey Rice and Finlay Curtis being, you know, another Kai Naismith. I'm just using that as an example. Kai Naismith was one of these players that was very, very sought after and could apparently go on to achieve great things, and that never materialised. Obviously, there's loads of mitigating factors in there. Alex Lowry being another one as well. We need to be developing our players the right way, and hopefully with this new setup, that's going to be the start of things changing at Ibrox.
Well, guys, we've spent nearly 15 minutes talking about the youth team, and literally it was news that Jack told me just before we started the pod, so it wasn't my intended topic of discussion. We're going to look over all the news in the last week. Jack, we'll go back to Wednesday night, away victory. Certainly the benefits from this is it's a clean sheet. It is a victory. It brings up to 3rd in the league, which, you know, a couple of weeks ago were 9th, unbelievably. But there's been a good feeling. You know, I guess initial reaction to Danny Rule coming in was negative, I think. I think the fans maybe either wanted Gerrard or Muscat as well. And he certainly seemed like, you know, if not second choice, even worse than that. But he's spoken well since coming in. It didn't start well with his first game, but he's had 2 victories in the league, which we've not had this season. So things are kind of turning slightly. You know, they are at small steps. The manager says it himself. What's been your impressions of him this week in particular?
Yeah, so I was a bit underwhelmed by the appointment, but that's mainly due to how excited I was for both Gerrard and then Muscat. Rule in itself is actually not a bad appointment. It was just the hype of the other 2 kind of brought him crashing into earth. But I've been impressed by him. Even the way he spoke after Bran was really impressive. He didn't come out and give the Martin usual spiel about, oh, woe is me, they're not listening, we're anxiety. He was like, not good enough, we'll address it, we'll get it sorted. And then he went out at the weekend and it was sorted, not perfect, but it was a lot better. And then at Hibs, I mean, that's something we've not seen for a Rangers team in years, grinding out a performance like that. We slowed the game down when we had to, we broke it up when we had to, we got an early goal, and then we held on to it. And first away clean sheet since, what was it, December, January sort of time. First away win in, other than Livingston, in a while. I mean, that's the first time we went to one of these top teams and actually got a result since last season. And it was really badly needed, but it's not just the performance, it's the way he's speaking. He's connecting with the fans in a way Russell Martin never did. Russell Martin talked to the fans, like talked down to the fans. Rowe is talking with the fans. He's given the same sort of sentiments, which is exactly what you need. He's clearly done his homework on the fans' expectations, what they're like, what they're wanting. And it's just that wee extra thing that he's done that Martin clearly never did. Martin thought the fans weren't important. Danny Rule clearly sees how important the fans are to Rangers and how important they are to the team and how important they will be to his future success at the club. So I'm very happy. And in 2 league games, he first of all cut the gap on Celtic down to 5 points?
5 points,
yeah. 5 points with a win at Kilmarnock. And now he's cut the gap, albeit only to 11 points, to Hearts with a win there. So we've made ground up on the top 2, got ourselves to third in his 2 games, and that's wholly positive.
Yep. Dean, I mean, it's going back to Russell Martin, not that I want to spend a lot of time on him. It's just seeing the difference between these 2 guys. They come from a similar league background, but Rule was loved by the fans down in Sheffield, and he's clearly fans are taking to him already up here. You wonder why Martin set out and acted the way he did.
Aye, just an ego and an arrogance that doesn't reflect his abilities. So that's kind of where the issue was. I mean, if he was a bit more humble within his own abilities and stuff, and but very good salesman, but he had to be, because when he was, after Southampton, he said that he'd learned from his mistakes, and he clearly didn't. So you're just coming out and you're gaslighting the footballing world from the off, and then continually gaslighting. It wasn't actually until the Falkirk result that he took responsibility. So, it was never going to work. The guy just, lives in cloud cuckoo land, if you ask me. But and I really pity the next team that he goes on to coach and manage, because they're in for a right treat, I'll tell you that. But he should probably stay away from football for a wee while and, reflect on things if he's got any aspirations to actually, change his career path.
I don't know if he does, mate. I don't know if he does. Look, thank you very much to Doug, who's made a slide for us. And Dean, I think you have issues seeing things. I'll read these quotes, not your site, I mean the tablet you're on or whatever. But I'll bring this up and I can read these quotes. These are quotes from Danny Rose post-match. And as I say, there's 4 different things there. So I'll read this out. So I'm just going to go one at a time and I'll bring it down. So on resilience, I'm really proud for the team because we understand today that we have to suffer in some moments, and I think it's very important to develop this resilience as a group. It's not just always about nice football to win games. You have to understand you need more than just nice football. Jack, I'll come to you first. That is completely the opposite opinion that Russell Martin seemed to have, isn't it?
Yeah, Russell Martin seemed to place the style of play above the results, which you can never do, because as much as you can want to play the right football, results at the end of the day are what matters in football. We would much rather go out and get a 1-0 win in a horrible game like that one on Wednesday night than lose 2-1 to God knows who, still in Albion at Ibrox, where Martin would have taken us to the lower leagues, playing the silkiest, most free-flowing football you could. We would much rather... I mean, Walter is a legend. He's got a statue outside Ibrox. And his football wasn't stunning at times. I mean, there was times he played great stuff, but it was times we were turgid and sturdy and grinded it out. And that's what Rangers fans want. We are not one of these teams like, the Celtic style of play or the Liverpool style of play or the Man United way. Our style of football is winning football. And that's what we need to get back to. And if Danny Rowe can do that, if he can change it up depending on who we're playing, if we're playing 3-5-2 or 4-3-2-1 or 5-4-3-2-1, whatever we need to do to get a win, then that's good and bad. But Martin just did not understand the support, and he didn't seem to want to. He seemed to just think, this is my idea, I'm right. If you don't agree with me, then screw you. Whereas Danny Rowe seems to have looked at the fan base, looked at what we're talking about. He's had research, he's done his homework, and he knows what to say to us. Now, it'd be much better if he believes it, but even if he doesn't believe it, he's saying the right things, which is what you need to do in his position.
Just on the Role's comments on that first section there, winning is really all that is important to the fans. I remember during the 55 season, I think there was a 1-0 turgid game we won, and I just said to my mate, like, who was complaining about it, the style of football, I'm like, I don't care if we win 1-0 every week. We'll win the league if we win 1-0 every week. And I don't think I was different from the majority of Rangers fans.
No, that was it. I think I was on the pod last night, and I think I said that those are the results that we are used to grinding out, and good to see the players covering every blade of grass, and like massive change in momentum and mentality. That we showed in comparison to the players looking like rabbits stuck in headlights, the majority of them for the first part of the season. So quite remarkable. I know it's only one game, but quite remarkable that he's managed to have such a transformation in 6 days, because against Brann, that was not the case. And last night was two completely different sides in terms of mentality. So that's a massive kudos to Danny for being able to establish something and actually, make a difference in it as quickly as he has. And what I will say though as well, that Germans have got that mentality, and being pragmatic is something that they're renowned for. So I'm only confident that his actual traits of his nationality will come out in his coaching and his understanding. Now, people obviously, they all kind of mock the Scottish League, don't they? And it takes a specific type of mentality and character to actually flourish in our league, because a lot of people south of the border and whatnot have came and failed drastically. So we need to, as fans, understand that if somebody's coming in and they're making a change as quickly as that in 6 days, the guy's got potential to go on and succeed, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there, mate. And we could probably on all of our hands name players that have come up here, or managers that have come up here from England, especially thinking that it'll be a cakewalk, and they find out that it's not. Scotland is just different than England. It's not that they are. Well, obviously the Premier League, they've got lots of money, but players coming from the Championship, they're not technically different or fantastically better, but it's a style of football up here. And I'm going to come on to the next quote from Ro, because this kind of covers it here as well. So he's talking about on Scottish football and changing to the back three. So he says, at first I looked at what the challenges of this league. You have to always cover long balls in behind. So Russell Martin clearly didn't get that. It's good when you have to have a +1, i.e. a third centre-back who's a little bit free man and can help each other. At the moment, this is a shape. It's good for us, but that doesn't mean we'll always have to play like this. So in that comment alone, Dane, I'll come to you first on this one. He's addressed a few things that Russell Martin was not able, and I really don't want to have to mention his name, but it's screaming out the page there how different he is already from, and as Jack said, he might just be saying this, but I don't think he is. I think he does believe it. He's done his research on Scottish football, and the man over the ball over the top into space was killing us under Russell Martin.
Do you know what? Not that I'm sticking up for Russell Martin, but that was an issue before him. The majority of the goals that we conceded were conceded with balls, and our defenders not dealing with the balls. And there was various people all throughout the Rangers fan base that were suggesting three at the back under Clement and things. So maybe even before that, but like, we're obviously not coaches and things like that, so we're just giving it from the fans' perspective. But given the fact that managers came in, seen the issue 9 days, is it speaks volumes that the fans have probably been right in saying that, and the fact that he's been able to come in and do it, and it just makes for a very positive outlook on our team that we've actually got a manager who understands what's needed for our league, because as I said before, it's a very niche league. A lot of players and managers have struggled up here, so it's quite promising that he's been able to come in and identify what needs changed.
I bring this comment up, Jack, just to address it. I don't think he's given away any secrets. It's no secret that the Scottish game is like this up here. He's just kind of telling people what he sees.
Yeah, and I think, see with the sort of analysis you get of games just now, I mean, I've seen some from Joshua Barry in the Rangers Review where he went into the tactics in depth. The sort of analysis you get now, the manager can't even go into that much detail. It can all be seen, it can all be reported. So I don't think, even if he came out and said this is how we played, someone's going to write a report on it anyway and explain it all. So I don't really think that matters too much. I understand the thought behind it, but he's not coming out and telling teams before the game. He's not giving away his team before the game like we were getting under Martin. So he's keeping his cards close to his chest and then going over it sort of afterwards, which I think is all right.
Yeah, fair dues. I'll pull up the next quote. Read it here. Now, the reason I wanted to cover this is we've got that team sheet out on the pre-match pod. I think Ryan and I were both pretty not shocked, but just like, oh right, dropped Tav. Gassama has been one of our better players, isn't there? But he's picked a team for the Hib scenario. So I'll read this. On rotation, you need more than just 11 players with such a schedule. You saw Max step forward. NASA played a good game today, but I can't speak about a lot of individual performances. For me, it's really about the team at the moment. Jack, obviously, as I mentioned there, the team lineup the other night, there was a little bit of a surprise. But he's basically saying he's having to use his full squad.
Yeah, and I like it. There was a lot of talk about Martin refusing to bring guys in, and how he was kind of sticking to the same guys because the likes of Rothwell played for far too long when he was clearly off it.
Kieran Dowell
was getting games at the start of the season. Even Danilo, who's came back in, was getting used far too much at the start of the season. So to see him actually give guys a chance, it's kind of what we need. And I think we've seen improvement. Magoma, I think, has improved in the 2 games under Danny Rowe. We've seen a big improvement, I think, in Mikey Moore. That boy looked as if he was way at his depth under Russell Martin. And I don't know what rules changed. I know against Hibs, he kind of played him more in that sort of free central role behind Danilo and Chermiti rather than making him hug the touchline, which seemed to suit him more. But it's one of these things, it goes back to Martin kind of been stuck to that system, whereas Rule's looking at what he's got and playing to the players' strengths rather than trying to get them to play to his system. So I would like to see a few more guys get used, obviously. Lyle Cameron wasn't in the squad for Hibs. The gaffer said it was a selection thing. And against Celtic, now this is going to be a bit of a controversial one. I imagine he starts Theo Asgard in that role to kind of sit on Cal McGregor. I would actually start Nadeem Bajrami. I think he does the job better, but he's not started the game all season. He's had a few sub appearances, but I think for an Old Firm game, he's shown every single one he's played he can do that job. And if we are realistic and real about giving everybody a chance, and I think this is a perfect game to give Nadeem a chance, because if you look at Danilo, he was out in the cold. He's come in. He's done a bit. Blue Electric Blue mentioned Suter. Him playing in that back three, he looks a different player. And I think the back three gets more out of Cornelius and Giga, who looked a great player at the start. But that game against Hibs, where he played in the three, is the first time he's looked like the player we had before the suspension against St Mirren since August. So I'm seeing improvement across the park, but I will caveat that with it is early days and it could all go to pot very quickly.
Yeah, and on the same subject, Dean, there's the comment a bit further up saying he's given our secrets away. We could pick Russell Martin's team, and 90% of the time would be right with it. So there was no surprises from Russell Martin's team, was there?
No, there wasn't any surprises, and it was never going to change anything. So that's stubborn and arrogance, and aye, but at the end of the day, a victory for him was having more possession and more passes. So that's his levels. So and that's not Rangers levels. So I think as well, though, we actually had good players that, I mean, I know, like Jack said, it's only been a few games and it could all go to pot, but, you know, Mikey Moore, an example, it was sort of clearly been played wrongly, and Rose, you know, like, people were questioning his loan, me included. In fact, the majority were saying, why is he playing instead of Finlay Curtis? You know, how's he any better than Finlay Curtis? What can he bring to the team that Finlay Curtis can't? And blah, blah, blah. And he just looked like he was nowhere near the levels required for Rangers. But in the last 2 games, he's been really impressive, playing in behind and a bit more narrow and more involved with the game. So that's hopefully a sign of things to come that Rule's obviously identified for that.
Just want to take a little bit of a second to mention our sponsors now. It's not one of these things we can recommend you go and buy or recommend you go and get a discount code from. It's if you're on holiday in Lanzarote, go along to the Bluebells pub, who's our sponsor, and they will look after you there. I've mentioned the Rangers Journal, and I think you actually get a wee treat when you do that, if it comes to a little drink that you're looking for. So yeah, if you're over in Porto del Carmen, check the Bluebells pub and tell them we sent you there as well. Thank you very much, guys, if you are over there. The last thing I wanted to cover on Rule from the other night there, guys, I'll just read it back to you now. It's on building something, and it's because I mentioned, and he's mentioned as well, it's been small steps since he's come in, which is all he can really do. He wasn't going to be able to do massive changes, especially not with the schedule we've got, not being able to get time on the training field and not being able to bring his own players in. So I'll just read that here. On building something. We spoke about creating momentum. On Sunday, we made the first step. Then the second step, we won 2 games in a row. And this helps us. But I spoke on Sunday about memories in football. Now we have 2 wins. Let's continue. The next 3 games are tough. Dean, he's not wrong there. The next 3 games, or at least I know the 2 of them, Celtic and then Roma, not going to be the easiest games for him. But on building something, what can he really do other than just progressively make small steps and improving?
Just keep going the way that he's going. Now, I'm not wanting this to happen. I don't think this is going to happen, but it's a possibility that we do lose our next 2 games, right? Hypothetically. But if we continue to see the changes that he's making and we do see progress, then we're not going to be as disheartened. We're still going to be absolutely gutted that we've lost the games. But if we see that things that the players are more motivated, they've got less instructions, they're playing better football, we're attacking, we're creating more chances, we're defending as a team, we're defending better, things like that. If we can see all of those small tweaks and changes and we lose the next 2 games, we're still on the right path, in my opinion. However, I know that it's a semi-final, we're at Hampden, and it's, kind of a must-win game, to be fair, let's be honest, because we want to be getting silverware this season. So I do think that we will have a good game on Sunday, and then Roma away isn't a favourable place for any European team to go to. Was it home?
I think it's at home, yeah.
Somebody messaged me the other day saying it was Roma away.
I remember when the draw came out, I was hoping it was Roma away because I quite fancied going to that, but no, I think it's at home.
Well, then, even Bill, that's didn't came. I thought it was away. Sorry, guys. Bill,
I thought it was away as well until like a week ago when I get the email
out. So yeah, Bill, a home tie against Roma is definitely winnable. That's for sure.
Right, well, we'll move on from Rule in particular, or singling him out at the moment, because we won at Kilmarnock. News-wise, not a lot else really happening because we had the 2 games. So the other kind of news is this upcoming game, semi-final, the League Cup. The League Cup, Jack, usually, when I was growing up, but the League Cup was ours. We won it so many times, I thought we should have got to keep it. But looking forward to this game now. It's incredible. I know we're going to talk about league for a split second, but it's incredible that we're only 5 points behind Celtic for how bad we've been, which just goes to show that they have not been in great shapes either. They have an interim manager, not very familiar with us, Martin O'Neill. Brendan Rodgers resigns, which I thought was strange, just because this day and age managers don't usually resign; they wait for a payoff. But maybe he wanted to not have to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
That was hilarious. That statement. We've come out with some cracking statements in the last 13 years, 14 years. That was something else, and that was verging on something you could get lawyers in for if you're Brendan Rodgers. And if that's another sort of court case going Celtic's way from him, and that's taking over a lot of the sort of talk with them, taking their attention away, that's all the better. But I think that was handled horrendously. The fact it came out at 10 o'clock at night, the fact that Dermot Desmond released a statement alongside the wording of it, it's an absolute mess. And I'm actually surprised at how well they did against Falkirk, but because I forgot was all the talk around that. I thought it was all the talk around that sort of stuff. It might play on the player's mind, but if you look at Brendan Rodgers, I mean, having Brendan Rodgers in your ear, 7 days a week, maybe having that taken away gives you a bit of calmness, bit of freedom. But Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney coming in. Martin O'Neill's 72, 73. He gets sacked by Nottingham Forest 6 years ago for outdated methods, right? He's going to come in. He's going to get that wee buzz that we would get if we brought in, say, Alex McLeish. We would get that sort of nostalgic buzz for a few weeks, and then the cracks are going to show that kind of football's moved them by. I mean, you've seen it. We get even guys like Mourinho at the top level. He's no longer the pinnacle. I think football's moved O'Neill by, but that Celtic squad are still, they're still a squad that won the league last year, but they're not as strong as they were. They don't have the manager they had. And Sean Maloney, he's by all means a sort of good coach, but he's sort of Michael Beale-esque. He's good in the training ground, not great as a sort of man manager. So it's going to be interesting whether we can take the game to them in their current state, or if that sort of new manager bouncing more ways than one way, O'Neill jumping about on the sideline is still there for them on Sunday. But I think if we take the game to them and we sort of play the way we have these last two games, we've got a good chance, because they're not going to be at their optimum, and it's not the same way we were going at this game a month ago. I mean, Stephen Presley's Dundee turned them over. Surely if they can do it, why can't we?
I've got a mate, Michael, I'll name check him. Yeah, he's one of them. In my job, though, we both work in the same industry. We get to a lot of time to listen to podcasts, a lot of time to talk to each other on the phone. So we generally have these back and forth arguments. And he didn't like it that I said to him that I have no care in the world what his opinion on Rangers or anything to do with Rangers is. But I do care about his opinion on his own team. So I let him kind of tell me what he thought with the changeover in manager. He's quite happy with it. He's saying Rodgers had them too rigid, a bit like Russell Martin was doing with us, overloading them, and Martin O'Neill's coming in, and this one game, they look like they're playing with more freedom. So how should we factor that in when we come up against them on Sunday?
I think as I said last night, Martin O'Neill absolutely hates us. So he will have them absolutely buzzing to go. Like, he will have, really, really fired up as Celtic have been for an old firm for quite some time. So irrespective of formation and tactics, things like that, I do think what you're saying is it will just give them the freedom to go and play and batter us. That's probably going to be his, maybe not verbatim, but that's going to be how he's going to, tell his players. I'm convinced of that. So that's something that we need to match. We need to match exactly that mentality for Sunday. We need to match them at everything. Because I think it's potentially maybe going to be a classic on Sunday. I've just got that feeling that it's two teams with that new manager bounce, and obviously the added ingredient of being an old firm semi-final. So yeah, I think we could see a good game of fast-flowing football.
Jack, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if I said it in the pod, in one of the chats, the Rangers Celtic game would be like two bin trucks on fire crashing into each other. But I would say the optics and things have changed. We're looking a bit better, small steps. They obviously won convincingly the other night there. So this game really feels different now. It really feels like, as Dean's saying, it could be actually one of those classic, fun games. Maybe even high scoring, last minute drama, something like that. Obviously, this will go to penalties. I hate that. It's and obviously we lost the last year on penalties, didn't we? So it's quite. I'm looking forward to it now, and I always look forward to Old Firm games. Is it too much to say it's the most important Old Firm game in the last recent history? Is that too far?
It's the most important one since the last one, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do agree with that. I think, my heart rate's still coming down from last year. That sort of Danilo, them scoring late on in extra time, Danilo scoring straight away. Just wish that
the more out than in.
Yeah, I wish Cyril Dessers had taken a penalty instead of Advan Yilmaz, but that's a topic for another day. We won't get Mitch started. But that kind of set the tone for the season. We were kind of on a climb again under Clermont at that time last year. And I think if we'd gotten that win then, it might have improved our December. And who knows where the season might ended up. But that kind of just put a dampener in things. And then we'd go and lose at St Mirren and we'd get bad results. And by the time we played them in January, the league was done. So it's probably the most important one in a good while. Probably since the 3-3 game we played at Ibrox a few years ago. But you're talking about classic games. I mean, I'd much rather it was one of the classic games where we battered them 4-0 or 5-1 or something rather than one of these classic 2-each games. Because, I mean, I don't know if any of you have dealt with this sort of Hampden ticketing app. I got my ticket for Sunday and I'd rather be in that north stand that after an hour with us 2 or 3-0 up, just having a wee sing-song than it still being 0-0 or 1-0 down and my heart beating out my chest. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, who's it in charge? John Beaton. No, Nick Walsh, it is on Sunday. So we'll see how that goes. Frank Connor, obviously on the line, who didn't award that penalty you mentioned about Czerny. It's more outside than in. I'm not sure that'll go, but at least he's not on VAR. So if he does make a mistake, hopefully it's overturned. But Nick Walsh, at least, I don't believe Nick Walsh is one of these ones that's really against us. I just believe he's rubbish, which means at least he'll be rubbish for both teams. So we'll see how it goes. But hopefully we've got enough about us to kind of go past these O'Neill tactics that are going to be, for the big boy trusting scales to boot lumps at us, and we can just get through that and get a couple of goals and just silence them early doors. I mean, I'd love nothing more than that.
Just for the record, because I'm being pedantic, go listen back to it. He doesn't say it's more out than in. He says it's more out, then he goes. I don't know what he means by it's more out, then he goes, but that's what he actually says. He doesn't say the in. I know he means it, but I just want to clarify. Go and listen back to it. I thought he said more out than in as well, but if you listen to it, he doesn't actually say more out than in. Dino, what we really need this weekend is the referees to be up to scratch. We have, I mean, the club have mentioned when the new manager came in that they are in contact with SFA discussing these mistakes that always seem to go against us. They really need to, the eyes. I mean, the only problem I'm saying, all eyes will be on them. Nothing ever seems to, there's no repercussions for any of these mistakes, though, is there? But hopefully they're on it and hopefully they treat the teams fairly.
That's all we can do. We can live in hope. But because we've been subjected to, your aforementioned situations there, we have zero optimism, really, that we're going to have, favourable decisions go our way. Now, I'm not getting violent out and playing a sad song. I'm just stating facts that since, you got to remember back in 2019, 6 years ago, the Julien goal that was offside. So I'm just, since then.
3 of them offside, Dean.
I know. So the big decisions in the big games, just, I'm not saying we haven't had decisions go in our favour, because we have, but not that many. So, and it just seems to be that we've had a lot go against us. And given the setup for the game on Sunday, it really just knocks any optimism in regarding that. So we've got to make sure that we beat them. And when we beat them, it's nothing that comes down to a VAR decision or anything like that. It's beating them fairly. Let's see it that way. And that's all we can hope for, that the team's good enough to play like that on Sunday. But if it comes down to a yellow card that should have been a red, or just like loads of things, I'm not optimistic about that. And one thing I will say, which is every single Old Firm game as far back as I can remember, Callum McGregor seems to be able to foul about 5 or 6 times before he gets booked for persistent fouling. It's just a given, and I want that to be if he's making 2 or 3 challenges on Sunday, I want him booked. That will show us, you know, a good step in the right direction, that the SFA are aware of that, because you can put your money on it that he'll have, you know, loads of fouls before he's booked. And I'm not saying that poor Rangers or anything like that, but that's not how the game should be officiated, and I just hope that it is officiated in the correct way.
Jack, I don't know if you're like myself. We mentioned earlier on Walter Smith and, you know, the just win. And it's funny sometimes to get a decision that's totally wrong go your way, and you maybe get a goal from it, or you get a penalty from it, or you get something, there's an offside, it's not an offside. It's funny every now and again, but if you're like me, I don't want to win cups and leagues by either being refereed to a different standard to your benefit or outright cheating, and I don't know if I can necessarily rule that out.
Yeah, I do. I mean, this will probably not go down to it. I've got a bit of sympathy with the sort of smaller teams in the league. I do feel that us and Celtic probably get a bit of rub in the green at times, but I do think Celtic get more of it than us. I think this sort of Celtic captain role we've seen with Scott Brown and now Cal McGregor, like Dino mentioned, is true. They get away with murder. They niggly fouls over and over and over. You've seen it against Hearts at the weekend. Cal McGregor fouls Cammy Devlin, then pushes the referee out the way to push him, and nothing happens. It is a typical thing. But I do believe sometimes we can get that against the smaller teams, but Celtic are the overwhelming beneficiaries of it. But you see it in junior football, your likes of Auchinleck Talbot get more decisions against the smaller teams. You see it in all sorts of football, but Celtic, it's been a systematic thing they've done for years though. David Murray wouldn't call anything out, so Celtic were allowed to have this go at the rest for years and years, and you've seen the referees striking 2010, 2011, and ever since then there's been pressure on referees constantly from them. I mean, you've seen what happened to, was it John Beaton after I can't recall what game it was, the Niko Katic header. There was threats to him, these kids couldn't go to school. That's what they do, and as much as we want refs to not think about that, if they're going, oh, is that a penalty Rangers here against Celtic, or what if I give this, what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my kids, and that's kind of what's happened. It's just the amount of pressure that's been put on them by ex-Celtic players in the media, by Celtic supporters. It's been happening for years, and it's not the Rangers' way to do the same, but we need to do something to push back on it. We need to put out things that are going to calm that. Say we see Celtic commenting officials, we need to sort of counter it in some way that's not the same thing, because I don't want to see us act that way. I know that's not really a solution, but it's the best way I can sort of describe it.
It's just frustrating, Dean, and I'm not talking about Celtic on the pod, but the last red card they had, I think Brendan Rodgers called. I mean, no, the red card was for a boot, well, not a boot, a high boot in the face. And John Beaton rightly flagged it up on VAR, and then he was again hounded that following week. They've never had a red card in the league since that. I think it's 70 odd games. Whereas in Europe, they get red cards just as frequently as us. So I do think there's something up. I don't think it's necessarily cheating, but it's definitely a fear of wanting to get that, as Jack's saying, your window's getting panned in, something like that. But look, move on from that. Looking forward to this game, Dino, and how do you think it's going to go?
Probably the first Old Firm game I've been looking forward to for quite some time, because remember being in Greenock, Gurick with Scotty and Stu at the New Year's game, and it was a bittersweet because we were wanting Clermont out, and it was pretty just bittersweet. And since then, it's pretty much been the same, because you want to Clermont out, and we're in a crappy situation. Russell Martin comes in, I've never really been looking forward to an Old Firm game for long enough. So yeah, I'll be absolutely buzzing come Sunday morning, put it that way.
I'm not having this, Dino. It's the Old Firm, so I'm backing you up on this one. Jack, there's one thing it's back to referees. I'm sorry, but it was something about John Beaton again the other night. Then I'm not wanting to jump on John Beaton bashing train. But I noticed that a couple of things. He books Cadden quite early, and then he has to find a reason to book one of our players. And Magoma gets a yellow card for touching the guy's chest. In the first half, Hibs were taking a shy. You seen him go for the ball that was further ahead on a cone, pick that up, and then walk another few feet. Nothing called. And then in the second half, Max Aarons tries to take the exact same position, tries to take a throw in, and he's told to go back. And the ball was a few yards further forward than it went out. They're not consistent enough, and it's really. I'm actually not even asking you a question. I'm just ranting at you, but it's just, it's so frustrating as well when they don't uphold the rules to both teams. And the other night there, John Beaton made that game about himself. There was no flow at all in that second half as well.
That kind of suited us, to be fair, though. I was kind of happy for the game to get broken up and had to not get any sort of momentum. But it's referees. I don't believe they're corrupt, other than there's a few I believe probably have leanings one way, Messrs Clancy and Connor, but I think on the most part they're just not very good. We need full-time referees. You've seen in England, they don't get everything right, but the standard is much better. It's because they're doing this Monday to Friday, and the majority of them are paid enough to get, £1,000 a game? You're doing 38 games a season. I mean, that's a decent yearly wage, and a lot of these guys are doing this as a sort of side project. So I believe the budget's there to have full-time referees, and I believe that's where we should go forward, because it's the only way they're going to get better. It's the only way we're going to be able to train them consistently, make sure they get things right, implement standards. If the guys are training one day midweek and then going to a game on a Saturday or a Sunday, it's not going to get them up to scratch. But that's the SFA for you. We've had Neil Doncaster at the helm for 20 years, and he's never once made a forward-thinking decision. He just sits there and kind of lets his dear Uncle Peter do whatever he likes with Scottish football. But it's frustrating, but it's something we just need to deal with. There's obviously going to be VAR, so you're kind of hoping any sort of decisions that don't go our way kind of get overseen by that. But we need to go out there and just take the game to them and try and not let decisions impact it. Don't get in a position where one offside call is going to impact the game. Get a lead, take control, and do not give them an inch. Don't even give them a chance to let the referees back in it, and you'll get there. Because you know how Neil will set up. He'll bring Trusty back in. He'll bring Scales in. He'll have all these big bodies trying to boot you. And that may have worked 20 years ago when he had Hutton, Hartson, and whoever else at the back. He's not gonna get away with it. We shouldn't get away with it these days if they play the same style. The referees should clamp down on it. It's just a matter of seeing if they've got the sort of balls to do so this weekend.
Well, Jack, I know you're going to the game. I know Cammie's going to the game from our pod. I didn't even try to get a ticket. I just don't think it was any point. But and I'm sure Ryan will be going to the game, and a few of the other boys in the podcast chat. So I hope you all enjoy it. Dino, just before we tidy up here, I always ask at the end of the news pod, is there anything I've not mentioned from the news in the last week you want to bring up?
Well, I think obviously that was maybe covered last week regarding what Thelwell and Patrick Stewart had come out and said. But one thing that I want to ask you guys about is obviously that January transfer window is only weeks ahead, isn't it? We're obviously needing reinforcements in certain positions. We've not actually heard any rumours. When do you guys think that we should start to hear at least some rumours of signings coming in on the 1st of January? Because that's when we're needing them in.
I mean, regards rumours, it's what do you believe, Dino, into it? You can go on, Reddit's Rangers subreddit. You can go and follow, and people put things up. People claim to be in the know. I mean, the whole manager search, folk coming in saying, I've seen Gerrard, he's at Ibrox. It's you're all over the place when it comes to rumours. My worry is who's going to be picking the players, Dean. Because if it is the guys that have been overlooking at it, I hope the American owners pull rank. And again, they're not going to have all the information on targets or whatever. I hope Danny Rule has a few targets in mind that he knows completely his system. Jack, what do you think?
I think it'll probably be a bit of both. I don't think Danny Rule will have full control. I think he'll have a say. I think Farewell, he said in the summer they used the English market because it's all they could do at such short notice. He doesn't have
Which is
that.
a stupid, lame excuse, sorry.
Aye, but he doesn't have that excuse now. We should be looking further afield. We had that Moroccan market where we got Egaman, and there was another boy who I think's at PSV now. His name escapes me. But we looked at the two of them, and we've not went back to that market when it's clearly an emerging market. It's something we should be looking at. We should be looking at sort of Eastern Europe, Scandinavia, try and get some gems. Their season finishes in November. That means they should be ready to go in January, fit and refreshed. Have a look at those leagues, and get his son and get the scouts to work. Really,
I'm sure here at the Journal, the what do you call that? What are you involved in the scouting network, Jack? Are you in that chat as well?
No, I am not going anywhere near that. I see Kai Watson stuff on Twitter all the time, and I'm like that it looks lovely, but it makes no sense to me.
But I'm sure here at the Journal we'll do some digging into it, and usually what we do is we bring the kind of popular ones to the pods themselves, and we'll tell you all the kind of stats and breakdown. Thankfully, we do have access to Y Scout now, so we can get loads more detail than we used to be able to provide. Some people just like talking about the game. Some people like myself like to know more in-depth stuff. XG does mean something to me. I'm sorry, guys. Jack, was there anything we've not brought up yet?
The only other thing was if you are going to the game on Sunday, make sure you check your emails. You're going to need to download an app. There's no paper tickets getting sent out for this game, which is a pain in the backside. You need to download the Hampden Tickets app. You need to fill in loads of details. So just be prepared if you've got a ticket for that email. Should be in now. Make sure you're all sorted before you head up, because you know what the service is going to be like at Hampden. Just make sure you've got your ticket ready before you leave the house, because I can see there have been quite hefty queues, so I'd maybe leave a bit earlier with all that. Just going to say that in case guys haven't noticed, but other than that, all good, Billy.
Jack, thank you very much for coming on. Dino, thank you for coming on your first news show. If you're free any other time, feel free to jump on, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your comments at the side, and thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll be back on Sunday with a pre-match and a post-match as well, and no doubt Scotty will want to jump on late on the Sunday night to do another pod, depending on what way. I don't think it even depends on what way the game goes, does it, Daniel? He'll want to do a pod on Sunday night. So remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night. Thank you.